So let's go on and do the trigger, which has this integrated safety mechanism. So let's go into Maya. I have a box here already, I can use that. Okay. You can see that there are some really small details. I guess it's some kind of spring over there that pushes this trigger part forward, so that when you pull the trigger it goes backward and compresses this spring over here, but I'm not going to do that spring. It's extremely small and on really hidden place, so there's no need to spend your polygons on that thing. So let's go with the main trigger for now. I'm going to delete those faces. And now I'm just extruding out. I'm going to orient on the widest point of the trigger here, and then I'm going to do the beveling there. So let's go. Again, at this point I am aiming at the low poly model, so I can add some more polygons here and there, especially on the curved objects, so that they would look smooth, because I'm going to use the same mesh. So let's fix that. So I'm also going to move that up so that it could go into the frame. I guess I also want to do this curve here. I'll achieve that just by adding more geometry like that. I guess I can just add more segments to make it look smoother, like this. Okay, so do I have the frame here? No, so let's update that. Oh, I actually did the hole already, that's good. I'm going to use that to make the trigger. Alright, here it is. So I'm almost there. Well, actually I think the hole is too thin, because you can see here the trigger is pretty wide. It's not that wide as a trigger guard, but nevertheless it's quite wide. So I'm not going to aim on this hole. I'm going to move it somewhere like this. Yeah, this is going to be the width. And one more thing. Right there, there's like a beveling. So what I want to do here is do more kind of this. Like that. So now to give this thing thickness. Select all the edges and extrude those. Select snap to grid and go to the center. Right there. Now let's snap the pivot point to center of the coordinates. Freeze transformation, Control D and scale it negatively. Now combine and weld right there. This is the main trigger. Let's fix the shape a bit more. Turn off snapping. I guess more segments here can be done. So what else I want to do here is the inner part beveling, because the back part seems to be quite sharp right there, but the front part is quite beveled, so if I leave this part to smoothing in ZBrush, it will be equally smoothed, but I need this part to be more rounded. I guess like this. I can add segment like that. Okay, just welding those just in case some vertice overlaps on each other there. They actually did, so. Now let's add a supporting edge right there. I can actually smooth this model right here and see how it looks. And what I don't like here is this triangle. It messes up the but no, it's okay. I'm going to smooth it anyway later on, so it's fine. Another thing here is those like two whole like stripes over there. I guess I should do that. So put this guy in. We have two stripes. One and two. And the third one is going to be closed by the safety. So those are two stripes there. Right, so in order to do those actually as a stripes, just bevel those. Now select the faces and, but not these. And I guess those stripes are ending here, so unselect these guys. Also check out the top. And now let's extrude those in like this. And the only thing left here is to solve this thing right there. You can keep it like this and the smooth version will be looking like this, but I don't quite like it. I want I want more smooth transition. So you just select those guys and weld them like in this such a manner, and you can see the transition is a bit smoother. Let's do the same thing on the top. Right, right there. Okay. All right, so. Oh, and I forgot, there's a third one, right? Same thing. Had to do the third one from the start, but kind of missed it. So same thing. Deselect. Control E and move in. Right there. Now select vertices and weld. Like that. The trigger is almost done. I think I would actually add some. No, I would not, because it's going to be cutted. So this looks nice. Now let's do the same thing with the safety. Duplicate this guy, move it out. Select, for example, only this edge loop, this to here, like that. Turn off the symmetry, delete this one. Now go back in and let's place it where it should start, right there. Okay. Now go to the side view and do pretty much the same thing. Just place those vertices correctly. You can select the whole thing and just rotate it. Suppose it goes something like this. I think there's a step over there and the thing goes wider. So I guess I'll do that. No. This should be done this way. Yep. Okay, so same thing with the safety. Select the faces. You can go with faces or edges, pretty much the same thing. Shift, expand the selection, flip normals, and we have this issue right here. Here it is 2 vertices because like it was extruded from this edge, this and this, and they're just overlapping there. So I'm going to well, merge those together like this, and then connect this. Oh, right. You should delete those faces. And you can see this line over there. It is another face. So the best way to do that, just to delete all of it and reconnect like this bridge, and here bridge as well, and just fill this hole right there. And actually we don't need this edge face loop. Select those guys, snap to grid, align, snap pivot, Control D, -1, merge, and weld. Yep, like this. So this is our safety. I think I'll add more edges there. Turn off snapping. Right there. This looks nice. So I think this part should be fixed. Or no, that's okay. So let's export these guys. See how it's gonna work. Don't forget to turn to the previous tool. Now let's append sphere. Yep. Call the folder trigger. Or actually no, I'm going to move it back to controls. It is basically control, right? Move this guy out. Now let's export this one. Duplicate. Yeah. So let's crease it. No, I don't need this part creased, so let's lower the angle for the creasing, for the auto crease. Oh, not this direction, excuse me. There. Still. Okay, let's do manually. Like that. Crease. Yeah, now it looks good. Looks the way it should look. I think I would move those guys a bit further. Like this. Yeah, now it looks better. Well, you can see like really tiny issues right here, but since this object is really small and I'm going to dynamesh it later, this thing will just go off. I mean, go away. There's no problem with that, it's okay. What I want to do now is just to increase the level of subdivision, make it more smooth looking to 4. Yeah, 4 is fine. Now the width of the trigger area hole, just select that subtool, center the pivot. It's not the only, okay, we have another one, so mask that out. I don't need that one to be wider for now, and make this thing wider. Like so. Okay. Now what I want to do is to well, basically this trigger safety works. There's like a certain way in which it works. This thing right here at this position should be facing some object right there, so that when you pull the main trigger, it will like hit that object and it won't move. And right now I'm thinking if I need that object to be modeled, because this part over here, I guess it's the least watchable part ever on the gun, not considering like the internals of the magazine or the frame where the magazine comes in. So there's no that much necessity to do that part actually. So I'll keep it like this for now. Let's hide other folders for now and concentrate on these guys. So crease this one, and somehow the width is different. Why so? That's weird. So we can fix that. Just scale it. No, in the symmetry it's not possible. So turn off the symmetry and do those separately, like this. Same for this side. Like this. Now it's straight. And still the creasing is not correct. Okay, so uncrease it. Uncrease all right there. And let's do manually. Now turn off the symmetry. Select these guys. Crease. Crease. Crease, and over here as well, crease. Yeah, now we're looking good. And this thing is on the right place. So one last thing left here is to make actual cutting of the trigger there. So select this guy, duplicate and import a box right there. Move it in. Scale to fit the width and set to subtract. Move it. Whoops. Right. Like this. Should be cutting the trigger all the way down. Okay, this looks good. So the last thing here is this hole like this pin that holds like trigger and safety together. And I think it's a six edged bolt. But it's that tiny small that actually I'm not going to do 6 edges on it. I'm just going to make a hole out there. Actually, I'm not sure about 6 edges. It's round. Yeah, it's round. That's even better. So same thing here. This element is going to be baked in, so no need to worry about the number of edges on the cylinder that I'm going to use right now. So duplicate and import random cylinder. We'll turn off symmetry. Turn 90 degrees. Center to the scene. Scale it. Crease. Try to find the rotating point of the safety. I guess it's somewhere there. And set to subtract like this. This looks not bad. So now let's do the pin itself. Duplicate the same cylinder. Move it in like this. Set it to another object. Duplicate again. That'll be cutting tool. Scale it to this point. Set to subtract and move in like so. Duplicate, mirror, subtract, and merge those two together. And here we go, both sides. Looking nice. Okay, so let's save the scene. Right there. So now let's do the frame safety, which is over here, which obviously works as a additional trigger that should be compressed while you're holding the gun. If you're not holding it properly and there's no full grip on the gun will not shoot. So like this thing should be compressed. So let's go back in Maya, hide those guys. And we have frame here, so here it is. This goes in. Same thing. Do the box. Select faces. Delete all of those. And let's just move them around so that they could look like that thing. Right there. And extrude it. Come on. Vertex. Right there. This part is not that important, you will never see this, so it just has to use minimum amount of geometry for us not to waste a texture space later. So make this thing as small as possible. Now let's bevel this thing. Come on. Oh, right, we don't have an edge to bevel. That's no problem. Select extrude, like there. Control D. Freeze transformations, -1. Combine, select vertices and weld, right there. I don't need this edge. Now I can bevel it, right there. Yeah, this amount of edges is okay. Now I want to adjust this edge. Yep, it's supporting edge there. And we're good. It's not fitting like in width, but that's okay. I'll adjust that in ZBrush. Let's just double check this part on the reference. And I can see here that there's beveling on the top. something like that. But just move it a bit higher. Like so, yeah, that's okay. Now send this guy back to ZBrush. Duplicate, import, crease. I would like to add more creasing, subdivisions right there, and let's fit it for the width. I think it's kind of wider actually. Yeah, somewhat like this. So same thing for this cutout over there. Alt click on it, inverse selection, and scale it out just to fit this thing right there. I guess I would also like to move it over here, and the top part as well. Move it slightly lower, like that. Okay, so we're almost done here. So let's unhide everything right there. And as you can see, the only thing left are those pins. And like a bit more complicated shape over here. So let's double check all of those pins. Yep, there are pins. There, and here's this thing. So this is going to be pretty easy. Alt click on that object and you can see all of those guys are here already. Duplicate this part. Oh no, not the whole folder. You can see if the folder is closed and you click on duplicate, it duplicates the whole folder. Right, but I don't need that. I need the subtool. So open the folder, duplicate it, and move all the way down to Controls tool. Here it is. Now I want to make those guys even by width. So select one side and scale it. Do the same thing for the other side. Scale it. Now those guys are even. And now let's scale them in to the gun. So how far are those sticking out? These are sticking out from the bottom just a bit. Right there. The rest are dipped inside just a bit, except this one. So let's select these guys, and what I want to do is deselect all the folders except the frame, and slide sites. Yeah, the rest is okay. Now scale those guys in just to stick out on the lower part like that. Now let's select these guys over here and scale them in as well, but let them rest inside a bit more. These guys are going lower like that. These guys as well, like this. And there's one guy left here. over there. So on the reference, this thing is cutted over here, and it has like rounded bevel over there. I can do that. That bevel follows the form of the frame. So scale it in like this. Also, no, deep the left side in more, or like there. Yeah, it is actually a part of this control, so it's okay to keep it there. Now let's do that cutout. Duplicate, import a box. Move it on the right position. Right there. And make a cutout, but not too deep. I don't want to be too deep. A bit further. Or even more further, like this. Okay, so one last thing here is this top cutout, not cut out, but just cut. Well, as you can see, I can't use the frame part over here, as it is not going to be used as the low poly one. This part would be heavily edited on the low poly stage, so I can't use it right now. So I guess I'll have to build a custom cutout part for that guy. That's okay. So start with the box. Isolate on the side view, move it to the very tip, over there. Now what I want to do is to snap this guy to the widest part of the frame, to here. Okay, extrude it, extrude this one as well, like so, and select this edge right there and bevel it. No, 0.25. Right there, it's almost there. Well, that's okay. I think that'll do. So, add supporting edges. Export it. Select this one. Duplicate and import. Crease. Divide and subtract. And here we go, it's almost there. What I want to do is just do a bit of editing on this part, like that. Also move that guy out, so that there was something to cut out, like this. Yeah. Well, right there it's not perfectly fitting that beveling, but I think that's fine because We will not able to see it from the top. Yeah, you can see it can be seen only from the side, so it's fine. It looks like acceptable. Okay, so I guess we are done with blocking out with booleans. Let's unhide everything right there. Let's save the scene. Okay, so this is like completed first scene of this object. This is like the editable scene. I can go back to it at any time and it can be changed if I want, perhaps like this thing be a bit higher. I can go back and move it higher. If I want to do any kind of changes, I can do that. That actually happens quite a lot, especially when you don't have like that easy object, something even more complex. Some issues may occur on like the baking process or low poly model, so you will have to remodel something or redo. This scene is going to be used for that. This is really like useful and handy and easy to manipulate. So now for the second scene, I want to go through every subtool here and make sure it is smooth enough, because for example, I have this trigger guard over here, and you can see though it's subdivided and it is like smooth, you can still see this like edges over here is not completely smooth, and this may cause a problem while dynameshing. Here's like, this is like our like collapsed boolean scene. So especially for the frame should be smoothed equally at like any place. For example, if I go and dynamesh this part, you can see that those edges over here as well. You hit dynamesh. No, that's too low. Let's increase it a bit more. Come on. I guess it's too high. It's computing. Takes its time. Not rushing. Right, 6 millions. That's a bit more than I expected, but that's okay. So you have 6 million polygons. That's actually good, because as much as possible is better. The more clean result you will have after like applying polishing. And when you have this thing might not go away after polishing. So this is like the example. You start polishing the model and you see like those like edges, that wireframey structure is still there, and that's bad. So why I was not doing this at the first place while doing the Boolean scene, because the higher resolution you go, the slower the scene becomes. So you can see right now as you zoom in, the scene rotates like pretty heavily, because the program have to calculate like all those cutouts and give you the picture. If you turn off live boolean, for example, you can see all of that mess, which actually the scene looks like, and you can see it rotates pretty faster and smoother, so the frame rate is actually higher. When you turn on this thing back, you can see it lags. If you like zoom out, it works a bit faster because of the algorithm of ZBrush. I'm not sure why, but somehow. So if I put every single subtool here on the highest subdivision level, this scene will like be freezing. It's going to be really hard to navigate through the scene. So that's why I move this process till the very end. So right now, as we're done here, I want to save this scene again. And now I'm going to go through every subtool here. I will open all the folders right there. And I will go through every subtool and make sure that, like, even when zooming this close, there will be no this wireframe effect. So let's do a couple examples. I go to solo mode. For example, for this bullet, go to geometry and set smooth to 4. Now you can see like that those edges are gone. It's completely smooth, except for these artifacts, but that's okay. I'll be able to fix that later. So now I'm just going to click on a down arrow key to move for the next subtool and do the same thing. So there's another bullet, cartridge, same thing here. I also click F to center the selected object on my screen, and this is the barrel. So this is pretty repetitive process, and I'm going to speed the video up at this point, and we'll get back to you with the normal speed when I'm done with this project, and you will be watching this in a increased speed so that you will not waste your time on looking at this. Okay, so we're done with that, and now the scene is completed. You cannot see any kind of edges over there, and you can see that the scene works much slower. And this process is also a good way of like double checking all of your subtools, checking if everything is fine, if anything is masked out or something like that, so you can just fix that. I had some issues, like one object had flipped normals and some kind of that stuff. Some of those had some masking on it, so this is a good process to double check everything. So now when we're done, like this scene is completely done. Now it is time to move on to the next step, which is dynameshing. So you already know this. Go to Boolean, dynamic subdivision, turn on, and make Boolean mesh. Now the program takes some time to process all of that data and move those guys all together. Yep, it said that there's some kind of a mistake, but that usually works anyway. Okay, so this is our collapsed scene right here. So right from the start, I am going to save it. Save as, call it handgun dynamesh. Right there. This is the second working scene. So now when, if you turn on the solo mode, you can see all of the subtools that we had. There are like all different object is now like a different object. All of those subtools that were forming it are now collapsed and form the objects. For example, this frame, this is how it looks in the end, with all the holes and cutouts. So what I'm going to do now is just hide everything. You can shift click on this eye on the selected subtool and all of them will disappear, will be hidden. And now I'm just going to go from top to bottom on each subtool and make it dynameshed and then polished. So let's have few words about polishing. So let me find a good example. Yeah, this one is okay. So you can see those colored things that somehow displaying the errors on mesh. They actually for dynameshing purposes they don't mean nothing, so that's okay. Turn off the poly paint and you'll see it's fine. So like what I do from this, let this be the first one. This is the barrel. So here is dynameshing, like controls I have here. So let's start, I always start from 128, and the ZBrush has its own scaling scaling measures, and sometimes they can get messy, and sometimes same scaled models but in different ZBrush scenes can have like different scale, something like that. If you drop one into another one, you'll see that the scale is different. That's like a really weird part of ZBrush. I still don't know how it works exactly, but the dynameshing resolution depends completely on the scale of the object. So why I do 128 from the beginning, just to analyze how it's going to be dynameshing further. So as you can see here, it's obviously really low, and here's the number of active points. It's 123,000. For that kind of object, which is quite big in comparison to other objects of this gun, I try not to go lower than 1 million active points for dynameshing. So Control Z and let's increase it by like 3 times 360. It takes a bit more time to, yeah, it's almost 1 million, and you can see still that it's not enough. You can see those steps there. It looks much better, but still not enough. So Control Z, and you always have to go Control Z, because you can't like choose more resolution and dynamesh it again. It will just like increase the amount of polygons on that dynameshed one. So you have to go Control Z. So okay, let's select 800. Takes some time. I also quite recommend you not to use symmetry while dynameshing, because it will take like enormous time to compute, and the result will be pretty much the same. So make sure you turn off the symmetry when you hit the dynamesh button. Okay, 6 million. That's a bit more than I was expecting, but still okay. That will do. The more the better. The only problem is that more polygons you have, the longer the process will take. So we can see actually some issues right there, but they're like really small, and they will go away after like first polishing. So right there as well. That's weird. Okay, let's try not that much. Let's try 600. $3 million, and still those things are there, but pretty sure they will go off. Okay, so the most common tool for smoothing such kind of mesh is polish, but it actually kind of bad, because here's the example. If you use polish, every deformation have two modes. If you go here, you can choose either like this hole or a dot. So both of those are working bad, because if we have a dot, you select polish and click 1, which means polish by 1, hit 1 again, hit 1 again. This is like the way I do this mostly all the time. This gives me a lot of control. I always apply like 1% of this effect, so that I could like Control Z to the right amount. So what you can see here is that polish creates this bump on the edge right there. You can see this, like here's a straight line and here comes this bulge, and this is not really good. You can see this, like at this distance there's like this weird edge going on in here. This is quite common thing for people using ZBrush, and I quite not recommend you do that. Oh right, and you see even with this polish those artifacts are almost gone, except for there, they're still there. Okay, but I'm pretty sure if you apply more of that thing they will go off. So what I tend to do, Control Z, back to the, yeah, I guess I'll go with 800. Okay, so 5 million, that's okay. So now instead of polish, I will use polish crisp edges with like mode turned into hole. So you will be able to see the difference. Hit 1 multiple times, and you can see that this effect, like this tool, does not create that weird looking edge, and the mesh looks nice and smooth, and the edges are much more natural, and you can see that those artifacts are gone after the polishing. Okay, so about like the next really important topic is how far should one push this polishing, because obviously you can go over the top with this, which would look like somewhere like this. That's not even over the top yet, but it's quite close. You can see that the rifling is getting weirder. It's like it's too blurred and looks weird. But to me, actually, this is much better than if you go extremely sharp. This is like, why actually doing this thing? Like, why should one like soften the edges? Well, if you look at the real life reference right here, for example, you can see that the bevels on the metal parts are really sharp. Well, not like the blade sharp, but really sharp. And a lot of people, when doing guns, try to maintain that sharpness of the edges, and that is like really bad thing for video games when you are baking normal maps, because like soft edges are done in a certain purpose. The purpose is that you can bake normal maps and the edge could catch the light and so reflect it back and indicate that this is an edge, the transition between one surface and another. And the more like the softer edge you have right there, the more light it will catch, and the more the more defined it will be. So at this point you can see right there from this distance, you can still see that highlight from the edge right there. And if I go back to the sharp edge, you can see that there's no that highlight anymore. And you have to find like that perfect balance between like almost blurred out details and but still remaining sharp enough at those parts when you need it. So to me personally, smoothing a bit more than required is even better than remaining those parts sharp. So right now I would like to go, for example, here on like the history, and why I was using this polish crisp edges. So some parts are looking already good, like this rifling and this bevel. You can see that if I'm going to smooth a bit more, this beveling is going to disappear. But still, I think that these edges could have a bit more beveling, and for those cases I use masking. So let's take another mesh for comparison, for example like this slide over here, and just another good example of you can see like this edge is extremely sharp and it does not catch all the light even in this program, and you can see like really thin white line here, while here it is already smooth and you can see like the highlight which is big, and it is indicating that the one surface goes to another one. It is a transition between surfaces so that the object is more like visible and understandable, like especially from the distance. So for such cases when I want to maintain this level of softening right here, but the rest I would like to go further, so I use masking. For example, like this part I would like to mask out the interior of the barrel right there, and not to touch the rifling. So you mask that out, and I want to smooth masking right now, because if I continue do polishing after this, there would be obvious seam on the edge of the masking. So in order to smooth masking, you hold Control and just click on the object, and you can see that the mask goes blurred. But there's a trick. If you do that, there will still be a marking on that side if you go polishing. So what you do is you invert the masking and do the same thing, so that the masking is going to be blurred from both sides, somewhat like that. Go back, and now you can continue polishing, and this part will be intact. So let's go on. Polish. I just add a 1 every time. It is okay to go over the top, because you can always go back at a certain point. Okay, so now remove masking. You can see this part still looks good. The bevel over there is quite readable. The rifling is still there, but this part is much smoother. Right there. So for now this looks good. And before I go on, I would like to decimate this object, because 6 million, 5 million polygons is too much. If I go all the way down with all of those objects, and each of them is going to be like a million or more, the scene is going to be extremely heavy. So when you are satisfied with the result, you can decimate the object. So right now I'm examining this barrel if I want to make it even more smooth. For this kind of thing, you can actually look on the reference of other artists, how soft their bevel is, but I really recommend you to go softer than harder. It will look much better on the end result. And the sharp edges on the bake is the worst thing to look at, actually. So I really prefer smooth edges over the hard ones. So I think I'll go even further with this. I want to mask it. I want to make it even more. You can see there I grabbed too much by that masking, so I'm going to undo this with this. Just too much. Right, almost there. Have to guess it. Right there, it's okay. And have to smooth the mask again. Come on, like that, and go polishing even more, couple times more, like this. So the cool part is that even this object is collapsed, and I'm going to decimate it, and it's going to be decimated and undoable basically. Even when you have some issues with object, you can go back to your Boolean scene and make Boolean mesh again and redo your bevels. So it's quite flexible. You can go back all the time. I mean, anytime, and fix anything you want. So okay, let's assume we're done with this. So next thing to do is pre-process your object. This will take some time as well. And then you should be able to decimate this. So right now I'm having 5 million polygons. I think for this kind of object, 300 to 400 thousand polygons is going to be pretty much acceptable. The decimation works really good. It reduces the polygons on flat surfaces while keeping a lot of polygons on the bended objects, or the bevels, the transitions between shapes, and everything that is curved, while remaining the flat surfaces with the minimum amount of polygons. So you will just see it, how it's going to work when it's going to compute. It's almost done. Okay, the program is done with computing. Now turn on the wireframe. You can see how dense the wireframe is. That's too much polygons. So I go with the percent of decimation. Let's go like 10%, which is going to be 500. Decimate current. And you can see how the wireframe changed. Like here's a big flat surface and then there are only a couple triangles there, but like on the bevel right here there's a ton of it. And as far as I can see, it's pretty much acceptable. Yeah, I'll leave it like that. 500 polygons, it's pretty much okay. This looks good, I'll keep it like this. Now I want to unhide this guy and unhide the next one and do pretty much the same thing with the next one. And I go from top to bottom and unhide each subtool that I'm applying Dynamesh, so that in the end I will have all of those unhided and all of those Dynameshed. So let's do the bullet, and after that I'm going to speed up the process, and I'll get back to you when we are done with this, so that I'm not going to waste time with like processing all of those subtools. So the bullet, you can see here, is collapsed onto each other. So like this part with this, they are together now. I actually don't want to do that. So I'll just go back to my Boolean mesh, select one cartridge right there and replace it with these guys. And I'm going to delete these guys right there. So do all the groups, and now I'm going to split the bullet from cartridge, because the cartridge is already smoothed out. It was done with like classic subdivision method and it's okay. But the bullet itself it's quite the same, but we have this artifact right here. So I want to fix that. So for the bullet, for the cartridge, I'm going to apply classic subdivision, Control D a couple times, because here we're doing the high poly model, so this is actually the high poly model, but this one is going to be Dynameshed. So Shift D for canceling the dynamic subdivision, Control D a couple times for classic subdivision, and now let's Dynamesh it, resolution for 700. Yeah, that's fine. And now you can see polish crisp edges. Do the same thing a couple times and you see that that artifact is gone because of the smoothing. You can actually do manual smoothing as well. Just hit Shift and like smooth the tip out. Now it's like completely smooth. Looks perfectly smooth. So now I want those guys, right, I'm going to pre-process this because 170 is too much for that small object. Decimate for 10%, and with this wireframe it's still okay. And now I'm going to merge those guys together, since this object is going to be baked on one mesh right there. So now I have completed bullet. Let's save the scene. Dynamesh. And just one small thing before we go into speeding up the process is the smoothing process on different materials. I go like the barrel is smooth right now with polished crisp edges, and it is a metal part. Like What I like to do for like non-metal parts, for example, this polymer plastic, is to go smoother even more, to go with smoothing even more, because in real life the edges are pretty much same sharp as the metal part, but in engine, in video game, in like the baked model, looks more convincing when the plastic part has even smoother edges than metal part, and it will give more representation that this part is from different material. So try to maintain same like smoothing of edges on metal parts, while the plastic parts should have be quite different. So nevertheless, that the real object is sharp, I would still go much smoother with it, with few exceptions, of course, because some objects I want to mask them out and keep them sharp enough. So right now I'm going to do all of the subtools, like smoothing for all the subtools, and I'll stop by the frame, because the frame requires some like adjustments, and I'll stop the speeding up process on the frame, and we will talk about it during the smoothing of that. So let's go on with same process and see you when we're done.